Until one day I had a keeper come to me. He was only out there get the turns right or something, or somebody was off sick. And he came in the TV room and he said, you look a bit worried, you know. I said, what's the matter with you? He said, well, who was that chap out there? I said, no, there's only us three here. He said, I just seen somebody looking out that window. Go on. I said, I knew, but didn't want to frighten him. He said, well, there was. I said, what do you mean? I said, how was he dressed? He said, well, he had grey flannels on, grey trousers, fawn sweater or pullover and a white shirt. I said, well, yeah, boss, what colour was his hair? He said, dark. Huh? I said, that's news to me, but I'd seen it. But he then upset the, you know.
So is this what, a resident ghost?
Yeah.
What, did you see him fairly regularly? Or?
Yeah, just in one spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you come out the engine room door, there's two ways, well, three ways in the engine room, but as you came out towards the TV room, say that was the engine room, you come out there, the passageway there, there's one block of accommodation that way, and one this, so you had that gap. And he was always stuck looking out that window.
Was he a keeper or?
No, he was, I think it's from the Cold War days.
Cromer Lighthouse in Norfolk. That was my first ever lighthouse after finishing my training in London at Blackwall Depot, and I was sent there for about a week. So I duly arrived with a handful of shopping, got out the taxi, got me bag, taxi drives off. I'm just going up to the lighthouse to announce my presence when the principal keeper comes out to tell me that I'm not now going to his lighthouse, but he's had a signal or a message to say I'm now going, or I'm needed, on the Longstone Lighthouse up in Northumberland. So now I have to turn around in a matter of moments, find out where the Longstone Lighthouse is, how to get there, and away I go. And that's how Trinity House used to treat their supernumerary assistant keepers. They're the ones like me, just first trained. You're just thrown in at the deep end and have to struggle on with learning how to be a lighthouse keeper. Once I eventually got up to Sea Houses, which is where you go out to the Longstone Lighthouse from, I was lucky enough to meet another assistant keeper up there, Pete Fitch, and he was the one that was to show me the ropes and also show me what sort of shopping I needed for my month out there. Without him, I think I would have struggled a lot.
Clean that the other day, would you? That blazing.
This is down to the workshop and engine room, and eventually ending up in the helicopter transit lounge, where keepers used to fly out to the Inner Dowsing Light Tower and also lightships in the area. Although this lighthouse in Norfolk looks like it's spelt Happisburgh, it's pronounced Happisburgh. You may think it's odd to have a lighthouse in the middle of a town, but if you've noticed on the east side of Britain, the land is normally quite flat and suffers heavily from erosion. So these lighthouses in a lot of cases were placed inland more, and either in the centre of a town or the town grew up around them. Southwold Lighthouse shows even more the bit I was saying about lighthouses built away from the sea or the coast. because this area in the east of Britain is very flat and the coastline suffers from a great deal of erosion. So it was deemed to keep lighthouses safe. They were built further inland. And as I was saying, Southwold is a big example of this, as was Wivensea that I showed earlier in this series. Although I was born in London, I was brought up from the age of 8 in East Anglia. I was brought up in Suffolk and not too many miles away from Southwold Lighthouse, in fact. Now, one of the things that Trinity House asked when we were under training was, where were you born and where do you live now? And the idea of that was, as they said, to bear in mind your home location for when they post you. So I duly expected to be posted to all these wonderful lighthouses not too far away. And in my 23 years as a lighthouse keeper, I never saw East Anglia again, other than that one night posting to Cromer Lighthouse where they sent me on to the Longstone. I visited Orford Ness Lighthouse in 1993. Orford Ness is Europe's largest vegetated shingle spit, and it can only be reached by ferry. The Ness was a big MOD property. MOD is Ministry of Defence property, with lots of top secret work going on, from experiments on over-the-horizon radar and the trigger mechanisms for nuclear bombs, etc. The Ness is now owned by the National Trust, who allow limited access. Fast forward several years, and the sea was now at the base of the lighthouse. So the lighthouse was doomed. So it was deemed that the lighthouse had to be demolished, as there was no way they could move it back away from the sea. So the Orford Ness Lighthouse Trust, they had permission to take possession of the lantern and several other artifacts from inside the building. Hopefully in the future, when they get proper funding, there will be the lantern would be re-raised as some sort of memorial close to Orford town with some of these artifacts inside. The lens, however, has been sent elsewhere. In 1980, an interesting event supposedly happened a couple of miles away to the west of the lighthouse in Rendlesham Forest. Some military personnel from the local airbase there investigated what they said was the landing of a UFO in the forest. Now there's articles on the internet, if you search for it, that describe the events that allegedly happened. There's also other explanations that reckon it was the light flashing from Orford Ness Lighthouse filtering through the trees that confused them. But if you, as I say, if you internet search Rendlesham UFO event 1980, I'll leave it up to you to decide. I wasn't there, I can't comment.
My name's Charlie Underwood. I've been the attendant at Orford Ness Lighthouse for the last 28 years. Originally the lighthouses were further east from here. There used to be two. The first ones were in the 1600s and they were privately owned at that time. There was a small light at the front and a higher light at the rear, which were called the small light and the great light, and they were in line to lead shipping from the north between the Southwold bank and the Orford Ness. Some of them got washed away, some of them got burnt down, and then Lord Braybrook, who was the private owner at that time, had this present tower built in 1793. It is now just over 200 years old. I became the attendant in 1965 when this lighthouse was fully automated, being one of the first lighthouses to be a fully automated remote control lighthouse. Recently, the equipment for the main light has been updated and is now computerized, and the equipment that sends the signals back to Harwich will be computerized in due course. Originally there was a cottage attached to each side of the tower. One was occupied by the principal keeper and one by the assistant keeper, and if they wanted help when they were at the top of the tower, they had this voice pipe with a boatswain's whistle to call for help.